Doctor, I'm a Time Lord. I'm from the planet Gallifrey in the constellation of Kasterborous.
I hope the ears are a bit less conspicuous this time.
You might be a doctor, but I am.
I'm a doctor, but probably not the one you expect.
Absolutely fantastic.
All of time and space, everything that ever happened or ever will. Where do you want to start?
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Bigger on the Inside, the new Doctor Who Watch On podcast. We're here with the start of Series 4, and it's a very different start to the series. Harry, you're here still, so it's not that different.
Yeah, and you are also here, though sounding distinctly more muffled than usual.
Oh, well, I apologise if it is. Is it badly muffled? Can people make out what I'm saying?
Oh, no, I can hear what you're saying, but there's a notable dip in quality to what we're used to, I must say.
Well, the reason for this is because I'm currently sat in a car recording from the front seat of my Seat IB. I'm not driving, I'm sat in a car park. What time is it? It's about 9:20. And the reason for this is because I've recently moved out of my flat where I have been recording podcasts for the last nearly 12 months with Harry. And I'm currently in a limbo period between places, and the place I'm currently staying at, the Wi-Fi isn't great, so I've relocated. So we'll get into a little bit about everything that's coming up in Series 4 shortly. But for new listeners, because I know sometimes we gather a few at the start of the series, welcome. Heads up, this series is going to be slightly shorter, so maybe if you haven't heard what we've said before, I'd say a good jumping on place would be the start of Series 2. Would you agree, Harry?
Yeah, that's a pretty solid place to start. We actually know what we're doing by that point.
That's true, yeah, and the format's basically the same as it is now. So the reason Series 4 is going to be slightly shorter is there's still going to be the same number of episodes, but there will be a month break after episode 6. There will still be some content uploaded to the YouTube channel and the podcast feed, but there will be a break of a month because that's going to sort of level it out with Harry at university and me moving around and stuff like that. It just makes it a lot easier for us to do that. So you're still going to get your news and stuff for the next 6 weeks, but until after the Doctor's Daughter, we'll remind you again when we get to that, there's going to be a break of a month, I think we said. But you'll still get content, so you'll be fine. But yeah, Doctor Who news. Are you ready, Harry? It's been quite a busy week.
Yeah. There really wasn't much news for most of this week, but then suddenly, like yesterday and today, there's just been a ton of Doctor Who related news.
Yes. And despite the fact that I'm in a car, I still brought with me my little podcast notebook in the glove box, so people at the gym didn't mock me if they looked in the car and saw me writing down little Jodie Whittaker notes. Let's start with Jodie Whittaker. There's been an extract posted on the Doctor Who website of an upcoming interview with Whittaker and Mandip Gill, in which they've answered fan questions from Doctor Who, the upcoming series 13. Harry, I sent you over a link because unfortunately I can't access links whilst I'm recording via my phone. So I know Jodie had something to say about keeping spoilers and the fun of keeping spoilers and what it's like when some things get leaked and the hard work various team members put in. Have you got that up?
Yeah, let me just get that up in a second. You might want to cut around this when we do the
I can cut around.
Publication of this. Maybe you won't. Maybe just leave me in rambling. Okay.
Oh, no, sorry, are you ready?
Yes.
Cool.
She said that when it came to keeping spoilers, the hardest secret to keep was my own, Jodie said, explaining that there was a really long gap between her audition for the part, being offered the role, and it formally being announced. I didn't want to leak. I didn't have any desire for it to come out before the reveal because I knew my life was going to change, and I was in no rush for that to happen until I was prepared for it, she stated. But professionally, I was the only person in my team that knew I'd been cast.
So what does that mean? When she says professionally, who else knew?
I'm guessing when it comes to saying professionally, she's talking to kind of people she works with, such as kind of like her agents and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And
yeah, sorry, go on.
I mean, I feel like that's something we'll be discussing a little bit later. because that will be
Yeah,
relevant
yeah.
to a different point in the news.
Yeah. The thing I like about that is that the biggest secret or the biggest excitement point she's had of being Doctor Who is the announcement. It's not the return of the Master or anything like that. It's the most exciting point and the hardest secret to keep of them all was the actual start of it. And I quite liked that, the fact that it's also maybe quite sad as well, depending on what way you look at it, that the most exciting point of being Doctor Who is the announcement. Not actually keeping points tightly sealed.
Yeah, that is true. And it's also it's it is interesting to kind of reflect on the fact that there have been leaks and spoilers during New Who, but I can't think, has there been a single Doctor whose casting has been properly leaked before its announcement yet?
I don't think so. I remember reading about Capaldi like a day before, and there being like, we're 99% sure it's Capaldi, but it also could be this person and whoever. So,
Okay.
But with Whittaker, I only recall seeing one news article with her name mentioned, and it was like a list of people it could be. And I remember saying it out loud to the person I was with at the time and going, "Oh, Jodie Whittaker." And I went, "Oh, who's that?" And I went, "Oh, well, she's Beth in Broadchurch." And they went, "Oh, well, they've just put her on there because she was in Broadchurch and Chris Chibnall wrote Broadchurch." And we were like, "Yeah, probably." And then like the next day during Wimbledon, they were like, "Ta-da!" And we were like,
Okay, that's interesting. Again, something that we might bring up later.
"Oh yeah, really? Yep, very true, very true." I mentioned there about there doesn't seem to be many story leaks for Doctor Who, big story leaks anyway. But I think it's fair to say that a lot of set photos from Series 13 are appearing online. Last week, I mentioned about the inclusion of pirates being cast for various Cardiff productions. And it does seem that Series 13 photos have leaked online, and it was for Doctor Who, and a couple of photos of them filming in Cardiff around the shore with Chinese pirates and stuff like that. So it's interesting that there doesn't seem to be so much secrecy with keeping stuff hidden from the press, or are the press just getting more sneaky with set photos?
Or is it a thing that, I mean, I don't know, Doctor Who has always done location shooting, hasn't it? Like,
It has, yeah.
because obviously
But they,
all the leaks we get are from on location shoots and stuff around Sheffield or in the countryside with Series 12 of the Cybermen. I guess it's just a
yeah,
lot harder to keep things under wraps when you're out in the open shooting stuff like
yeah.
that.
You would have thought they would do stuff like maybe park lorries up to try and try to stop people's viewpoints. But like, I remember when the Weeping Angel photos came out, they were just like really clear photos of Jodie Whittaker and various cast members with Weeping Angels, and the same with the Sontarans as well. It was almost like, oh, I think with a lot of media now, there is a to and fro with it, where it's like, oh well, if the photos get leaked, that's kind of not the greatest for the surprise, but it gets people excited about it because they know such and such is coming back or this is happening. And
But
I feel
then,
that's what they tried to do with when John Sim returned as the Masters. They put it in a trailer. They put John Sim in the trailer. And everybody went, "Well, you just ruined that surprise." But then people went, "Oh, he's coming back. I'll watch it." Or
but then I
whatever.
can't help but wonder, like, how does stuff like Star Wars, like they do on location shooting, and yet you don't get huge plot spoilers from those. How do they manage
That's true.
to hide this stuff from the press more easily than something like Doctor Who? Is it just a budget thing, or?
I think it's budget that therefore translates into security. I imagine trying to. I mean, like that said, 2 months ago I walked onto the set of Mission Impossible 8 or 9 or whatever the next one is. I just walked onto it and I saw them filming. I saw Tom Cruise, and it was so easy to see what was going on. And it seems to be the same with the new Indiana Jones film. But I guess maybe with Star Wars, because they're filming, or when they did film Star Wars, they're usually out in deserts. They're not in villages and stuff like that and streets. I don't know.
Yeah,
It's hard
and
to. I guess it's hard to guess.
maybe it's a thing that so much of like leaks relating to Doctor Who is down to like returning monsters and characters. And Doctor Who
Yeah,
has so much iconography and so many kind of iconic monsters and stuff that it's hard to hide those things, especially when they're practical props. Like compare that to something
yeah,
like Star Wars, where a lot of stuff is kind of post-production VFX. Like that's something that's much easier to hide.
yeah. Especially if you look at something like The Mandalorian as well. There's like hardly any location film, and it's all done with those massive 360 LED screen things now. So stuff like that is really starting to it's good, isn't it? But I feel like there's probably going to become a time where it will go the way of the prequel series, in which it's too much computer stuff, and then they have to find a new hybrid, which I think we're quite happy with at the moment. But I feel like it's starting to shift again to more computer generated stuff. But I'm sure it'll level itself out.
Potentially.
Yeah, obviously we are going to get to the big news of the week, but before that, something I saw pop up online is that Stephen Moffat is like I say, apologies, I'm filming in the car, so if you do hear kids revving motorbike engines, I apologize. But Stephen Moffat is back working with David Tennant and Peter Capaldi on two separate projects. But it's kind of exciting to know that those dynamics, those friendships are still, they're still going, and we're still going to be getting new projects. Harry, do you have anything about that?
I have the news article that you told me about them. They're both coming from Moffat's production company called Hartswood, and they're both completely different shows, both completely unrelated to Doctor Who, other than the fact that they do involve previous New Who Doctors that Stephen has written for.
Do we have titles for those projects, or a little bit about them?
Yeah, the Capaldi show is a 6-parter called The Devil's Hour about Lucy, who is woken every night by terrifying visions at exactly 3:33 a.m.
Oh.
And
well, 333, that's half of the Devil's number, isn't it? So I'm going to take a stab in the dark and say, how old is Lucy?
It doesn't say. She's played by, let me find the actor who's playing her. Jessica Raine from Call the Midwife.
Oh, so she's an adult. She's an adult. She's not a child star.
Yeah.
Okay, well, my stab in the dark is that there is another person, maybe a man, who is also woken at 3:33, whatever, and they have a child, and that child turns out to be the devil.
We're told that we know that Peter's character is going to be a reclusive nomad who becomes linked to a string which is drawn into this story when Lucy's character becomes linked to a string of brutal local murders.
Oh, it sounds interesting. I like Moffat's darker stuff, apart from Dracula. Well, apart from the last episode. The first episode of Dracula was great.
This is the same production company that did Sherlock and Dracula.
Okay, so we've got a 50-50 streak so far.
Mm-hmm. And the other series with David Tennant is called The Inside Man, where David will be starring opposite Stanley Tucci.
Oh, that's interesting. Who most people, like me, know as the voice of K2SO from Rogue One.
Oh, yeah, so it is.
And,
yeah, this is going to be a 4-part thriller based on 3 people in different parts of the world whose lives are bizarrely intertwined. That is all we know about it.
I think David Tennant would be good in some, like those Agatha Christie sort of things where everybody is gathered in a house and one of them's the murderer and they don't know which one it is. I'd like to see a series like that done by Stephen Moffat with David Tennant in, and you could have a range of British stars in there, like Capaldi and Tennant, and certain people like that, Phoebe Waller-Bridge,
Yeah, well,
I think that
going from Doctor Who to that just makes sense naturally, because obviously Doctor Who, so much of that, pretty much every episode, you have the Doctor solving some sort of mystery. And really leaning
I like stuff.
Really leaning into the kind of whodunit aspects of that. It only makes sense. It would be a very natural fit.
Yeah, it's original ideas as well, which is good. I like it when both of these sound like they're going to be one and done, especially the Capaldi one. Sounds like it could possibly do like a one series and done sort of thing, which I quite like because it means you get a finer storytelling rather than something that is left open-ended. I like it when stuff's wrapped up. Unless I really enjoy it, I'm like, oh, I'd like to see more of that. But a lot of the time now with telly, I'm like, you've deliberately left that open-ended so you can get another series.
I know. I know there are a lot of people who do feel that Moffat is at his strongest when he is writing something more self-contained. There are a lot of people who really enjoy Moffat's self-contained stories, but are less fond of his big multi-series arcs. So perhaps for those people, this will really play to what they feel is Moffat's strengths.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. So let's go on to the big news of the week. Olly, how do you say his last name? Alexander. Alexander. Olly Alexander. As we've talked about probably 3 times a month for the last 6 months, is constantly being thrown around to be the new Doctor Who. But this week, for some reason, I was awoken to a text message from yourself that just said, Olly Alexander is trending. And I was like, oh, what's he done? I went on and no, it was all Doctor Who stuff and people speculating that he could be the next Doctor. You seem to know a little bit more about this than I do, Harry. So what's your understanding of how this came about? Because my understanding is that it basically started as a joke from Russell.
Not necessarily a joke, but I believe that Russell has for a while been a very vocal advocate that he thinks that Ollie would be a brilliant Doctor, something which I personally wholeheartedly agree with. And I believe yesterday it was leaked to a newspaper that from a BBC insider that apparently Ollie has been in talks to play the 14th Doctor, and that he basically has been confirmed to play the role, and that he's just in the last stages of negotiations. However,
sorry, go on. Yep.
There is one thing which is opposing this, which is that Ollie's, I don't know if it's Ollie's rep or his agent, posted on Instagram a very punny post, basically saying that Ollie is currently focusing on his music career, and that as a result of that, he's not going to play the Time Lord. However, if we go back to what we were saying earlier about Jodie saying that she couldn't reveal to her team that she was playing a Doctor until it was revealed, is it a similar situation with Ollie? Has he accepted the role and he just can't tell his team that he's got the part? We don't know.
Perhaps. So let's go right back to start with Russell, right? And I know people go, well, Russell doesn't run the show, he's not showrunner, he's not involved with the show anymore. That's true. But there is a clearly a close friendship between Chibnall and Russell. They're often interviewed together, and same with Moffat and Russell and stuff like that. So I do believe that that Russell still does have some foot in the door with Doctor Who, and I do sometimes believe that he's kind of asked questions by showrunners and producers about his opinions on stuff. I know when they brought the Jadoon back, they asked Russell. They said, "Are we all right to bring the Jadoon back?" Because normally you would have to get some rights sorted out, and Russell would get a paycheck from that. And apparently Russell didn't. He said, "No, it's fine. Go ahead, use it." So there's clearly some. He's not involved in Doctor Who at all, but I feel like when needed, someone will ask him a quick question or his suggestion on something. In the same way that when it came to Capaldis casting, I remember Moffat saying that him and Mark Gatiss sat down to discuss it. And Mark Gatiss isn't even a showrunner. He has no involvement in the production of Doctor Who. He wasn't a producer. He was just a friend of Stephen. And they both came up with the suggestion of Peter Capaldi. So the Russell's involvement in that wouldn't surprise me at all. I'm trying to think if there's anything similar like that, but no, there isn't really. Because anyway, so then there's that. I think that's great. The stuff with Ollie's rep, I think is interesting. I hadn't thought about it the way you had, which is that maybe they generally don't know. But if you looked on their Instagram account, they kept posting stuff throughout the day, and it got to a point where I was like, are you trying too hard now to cover something up? It was like they were going, no, it's not the Doctor, but look at this funny graphic the Sun's done, and here's who I think should play the Doctor, and oh, here's a fan art of what he would look like if he was the Doctor, how silly it looks. And I'm like, oh, are you trying to tear us away from it so that we go, oh no, you are right. But then it got to a point where it was too much. I'm like, are you actually trying to cover something up? And I think when Ollie was on, we've spoken about this in the past, when Ollie was on the One Show and they asked him if he would be Doctor Who, and he gave an answer that either was yes or no. And sometimes you get stuff from certain people where they it's very clear that they want it and they haven't been approached, and they go, I want it, nobody's asked me about it, which usually means that they're out of the running. But Ollie is constantly being like, oh, I don't know. That could just be his character that he plays, like his persona. But I don't know. I'm inclined to say that Ollie. What's that noise? Anyway, sorry, I'm inclined to say Ollie won't be the next Doctor. But I feel like his name was on the cards.
My take, I know this is a very biased take, because I'm going to say outright, currently, Ollie is my number one choice for the 14th Doctor.
Same,
Above Joe Martin, above Richard Ayoade, above Chris Marshall, or whatever. Ollie, right now, in the forefront of my mind, that is who I want to be the next Doctor. And maybe that's swaying my viewpoint, but I can't help but imagine, especially with this rep stuff, I can't help but imagine scenarios in which the rep publicly is saying, "What? No, Ollie isn't. He's focusing on his music career." And as soon as they post that, they go to Ollie like, "Okay, Ollie, what's going on? Please tell me. Are you a doctor? What's going on? What's going on? Please, Ollie, tell me." That's what I'm imagining in my head. I would be, to me, like, and I'm not a guy to buy into the rumor mill, but this feels right. I don't know why, but this feels there's something.
No, I agree with you. There is one thing that makes me think this isn't going to happen, and I'm going to be careful how I word this, because I was looking on Ollie's Instagram account, right? And Ollie is a very flamboyant, out there, fabulous person who he is such a good image for an LGBT plus community and all that stuff. And I was looking for his Instagram, and there's some amazing. The reason I was looking for his Instagram, spoilers, is to get thumbnail photos. So I'm looking, but then I'm finding images, right? And I'm like, oh, maybe this isn't the brand that they want. And it's like one of the most recent ones. Maybe if you're a kid, maybe like skip this bit. He's got like the front of his trousers down, and he's showing his pew. I think I could be writing this. He's showing his pews, and he's got like shaped into like the letter G. And I'm like, that's fine. Like, I don't have a problem with that. But is that the branding that the BBC want associated with the show? Do you see what I'm getting at? What I'm trying to. Do you know?
I
what
hear
I mean?
you. But I counter this with David Tennant has been naked on stage, and he was naked on stage before he played the Doctor.
That's true. That's very true. Yeah.
David Tennant has performed on stage. There are production photos of a naked David Tennant, I believe, where you can see everything. I don't think showing some skin is an obstacle to playing the Doctor.
No, it was just one of those things where I saw it and I thought, if Ollie is announced, I can see this being on the front page of some red top newspaper or something like that.
I'm also pretty sure that, like,
apart from that, I'm totally with you. I 100% would. He's my front runner for the role.
I'm also pretty sure that both Chris and Jodie have done sex scenes. I'm pretty certain. Yeah. And wasn't Matt Smith in Diary of a Call Girl as well?
He was, that's true,
That's no obstacle. That, in the eyes of the BBC, that does not prevent you from being a Time Lord.
That's great. Is there any other news on that? I think that's about it, really, isn't it? It's sort of the press is saying he's the Doctor, and his agent or his rep or whoever is going, nope, don't look over here, go look somewhere else. And I know they also mentioned his It's a Sin co-star, whose name has completely slipped my mind, who played Liz. Was the character named Liz?
I think her character was called Jill.
Jill, that's it. The actor's name completely slips my mind. I do apologize.
Do you want me to find it? I'll find it right now.
Yeah, do. Yeah, I think she would be a great Doctor, and I know that she's currently doing work with Big Finish. So it'd be interesting to see what capacity they're going to use the named actor Harry's about to find for me. I think it's something White or something like that. I can't honestly remember.
I'm just looking at the cast of It's a Sin.
Yeah, she would be.
It's Lydia West.
Choice.
You're thinking
Lydia West. That's it. Yeah. She would be an amazing choice, I feel, to be Doctor Who.
Yeah, it's interesting. Lydia is. I think the only things I've seen her in are It's a Sin and Years, Russell's last two shows.
Yeah.
Ollie's less of an up-and-comer because he was kind of known for Years and Years, the band, not the show.
And not the period of time.
Yes, not the period of time.
Yeah, he was known for Years and Years.
It's very confusing. It's very confusing to talk about Olly Alexander and Russell T Davies because Olly Alexander, his music project is Years and Years, not to be mistaken with the Russell T Davies series, Years and Years, which does not include Alexander. But Olly Alexander is in the TV show It's a Sin, not to be mistaken by the song It's a Sin by the Pet Shop Boys. Although Olly Alexander has done a cover of It's a Sin as Years and Years.
Yep.
And then it's
It's one of those things, yeah. What do you think to say if Ollie is cast as the Doctor, right? What do you think to the progression of actors who have played the role? It has been a white dude for 50 plus years, like 56 years or whatever it was, right? And then they went to a white female, and that was great. So the first female to play the role, and amazing, right? What do you then think to them going back to a white male? Do you feel that they should? I personally feel if it was me, I would cast another female because I would feel you are therefore open to criticism of, oh, well, it didn't work, did it? If you cast a woman, oh, you've gone back to a bloke, it didn't work.
It's a question of whether or not you should listen to that discourse and kind of think in the frame of, well, okay, we need to cast another woman immediately to prove that this isn't just a one-off quote-unquote experiment, which is not going to be. If the next casting is Ollie, I'm sure there will be another woman down the line because that's now been set as a precedent. But also is the fact that I feel like casting Jodie just kind of opens the floodgates to just even more people can play this role now. And now it's just a matter of just picking not the best man for the job, not the best woman for the job, but the best actor for the job. And also, Ollie breaks boundaries in his own way in the fact that he would be the first LGBT plus actor to play the role. And of that in a way breaks its own boundaries. And also kind of in a way that's somewhat more meaningful to the Doctor Who community because it's been well known that Doctor Who has had a huge LGBT plus following for ages. You know, you only have to look to people such as Russell himself to see, and it dates back as far as the 80s and even before. And to kind of, this would be
on our Twitter feed. Sorry, go on.
Just saying, casting as Ollie, although his sexuality may or may not play into the characterization of the Doctor, it doesn't need to by any means, but it would kind of be an acknowledgement of that following and an embracing that the show perhaps hasn't done to the fullest capacity yet.
Exactly. I can agree with you more. I'm slightly conscious of time, Harry, and I know we've got to get into our first episode of Series 4 watch along, so I will hand it over to yours truly to segue us into another Christmas special.
Yes. So you're in a car, Tim, aren't you?
I am in a car. Yeah.
Are you traveling anywhere? Are you going on a journey anywhere?
I've just travelled from home to the gym and now travelling back home.
Oh, okay. Although, like you said, your Wi-Fi isn't very good at home, is it? You can always say that kind of like your Wi-Fi connection is maybe it's a bit intense and biblical, but perhaps your Wi-Fi connection at home is almost damned. So perhaps the journey home from the gym to your home is a voyage of the damned.
That wasn't too bad.
It's better than what I've been doing recently. I feel like that's a lot better than what I've been doing recently.
I think I played into that one as well. That's why sometimes I just look at you with a blank stare, like, go on, get yourself out of this hole. But no, that one was okay. So yeah, enjoy us talking about Voyage of the Damned, and we will be back next week and throughout the week with a couple of videos. And back this time next week with a brand new episode of Big On the Inside, where we're going to be talking, where we properly start Doctor Who Series 4. So come join us then. If you are new, check us out on all our socials. Everything's linked in the description, and enjoy the rest of the podcast. There you go, Harry. You can stop the recording now.
Oh, I stopped recording. Are you going to include this bit where I fiddle around going to stop the recording?
Probably.
It's not that hard. I can see it right here.
Shut up! Shut up! Shut it down, pop up!
Humans are better in one respect. You are better at subscribing. Seek, locate, subscribe.
What's the point in having you all?
Hello everybody, welcome back to Big On the Inside, the new Doctor Who Watch On podcast. And since that's been with me as always is a man who I once witnessed Push an old man into a pond, point at him, and go, "Never eat my crisps again." Harry Murdoch, hello, how are you?
He had it coming.
He did. He had it coming. What had he done? What had led up to this?
Like you said, I left my Pringle tube on the bench to go to the toilet in a bush. Came back, old man getting his grubby mitts in my Pringle tunes. But actually, they were actually quite well-maintained hands, actually. I don't know if he like moisturized or something, but they're actually very good condition hands considering his age. But that's besides the point. The fact is, he was poking around in my Pringle tube. My Pringle tube is for me and me only. Yeah, exactly. And I don't, a thief is a thief.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Doctor Who podcast. Bigger on the Inside. We're doing a very special Christmassy episode, which is called What, Harry?
Voyage of the Damned by Russell T Davies.
Yeah, our third Christmas helping of Doctor Who. And so far, my favourite, and it seems to be the nation's favourite as well, as this is the highest ever recorded episode in viewing figures anyway for New Who. 13.31 million people tuned in to watch the Doctor and Kylie Minogue dance around a spaceship that looks like a boat. Harry, what did you think of the episode Voyage of the Damned?
I like the episode, but the first thing that I kind of was left thinking after it was like, wow, like everyone dies.
Yeah. Apart from...
so many people die.
The guy from One Foot in the Grave. Clive Swift.
Yeah.
Spoilers.
So many people die.
So let's start the episode. I always find it very strange, these Christmas episodes, seeing the Doctor hanging around on his own, especially the 10th Doctor. There's something very lonely about him when he's on his own. It doesn't sit quite right. And I always find it strange when he gets out the TARDIS and he's just like on his own and nobody else follows him out. I'm like, what's he doing? Why is he on his own?
Yeah, it's like kind of, I guess he's just kind of exploring for the joy of exploration at that point.
Yeah.
I guess. But it's like, yeah, it's right, because so much of kind of the 10th Doctor's kind of character and his arcs are kind of like defined by kind of that desire for companionship.
Yeah.
I mean, that does make, that really defines his whole arc. And then later on, when we get to the Time of Victoria stuff, how kind of he needs that companion so much to kind of ground him and put him in his place and stuff like that. Yeah, so it is interesting to see him just kind of isolated like this, and there is a strange sense, especially I think after a whole series with Rose and then a whole Christmas special with him with Donna trying to get over Rose, and then a whole series with Martha still trying to get over Rose and trying to figure out his feelings for Martha. And yeah, I mean, this is the first solo 10th Doctor story, isn't it?
Yeah. It's the first solo one where we don't have a companion or somebody who would later return as a companion.
Yeah.
I think I skipped over this though. Is this a new theme tune? It's a new rendition of the Doctor Who theme tune.
Yes, I noticed that.
Yeah, and I really like it. Very rock.
Yes, it has a rockier vibe, which is interesting. Very interesting. It's kind of. Do you think that's kind of indicative of the era? Like it was kind of rocky, poppy music, kind of a thing. I feel like I remember it being a thing back in 2007.
Perhaps I don't ever remember. If you asked me to tell you how many times the theme tune to Doctor Who changed between Christopher Eccleston and David Tennant, I might have said 3 times. But so far, it's changed in like every series.
Did it change in series 2?
Oh no, series 2 is the same. Series 3 it changed, and series 4 it's changed. It'll change again in series 5.
Yeah, series 3 added the middle 8th, and this is. I guess that's kind of that's why I always consider kind of these Christmas specials to be the start of the next season rather than the end of the one we've just had. Because here you can see like the changes starting to emerge.
Yeah. So welcome to series 4, everybody. Thank you for being here, and thank you for being here as well, Harry. It's appreciated.
You're welcome, Tim.
An all-star stellar cast of people who we know and some people we will grow to know. Russell Tovey, a very young Russell Tovey, who who does later appear in Doctor Who in future episode, and Years and Years, and The Job Lot on ITV, and just a great actor, great character actor in probably what is one of his first breakout roles, I would have thought.
As Alonso.
Yes. What did you think to Russell Tovey's character? I could never quite caught the character's name, but I really enjoyed him.
Yeah, I really enjoy him. I mean, he has kind of a lot. I mean, he kind of has a whole kind of B plot going on throughout this story, and for the most part, it's just him having to hold that. So that's probably, for a Doctor Who Christmas special, that's a lot of weight on him, and I think he handles it very well. Like, he's empathetic, he's kind of grounded, he's very kind of pure of heart, good intentioned. He's great. You're with him the whole way.
Yeah, I'm just looking here. I'm not sure. Russell Tovey confirms Doctor Who audition. It would have terrified me. It would have terrified me. I don't know what I would have done with my audition. The 31-year-old did screen tests for the part of the 11th Doctor, according to the Independent, but ultimately lost out on the role to Matt Smith. So he almost returned to Doctor Who as the 11th Doctor. That would have been a very different casting.
Interesting. It would have worked, undoubtedly. It's interesting to picture him in the role. I've never considered Russell Tovey before.
There's probably some fan art out there you can all enjoy. One of our recurring segments on this show is David Tennant's clothing. Tux 10 is back. Last seen in the Lazarus Experiment, and had he won? Before that, in the Cybermen double bill episode from series 2. And I like the fact that.
Of course, I forgot Tuxedo Tennant appeared there.
Yeah, I like the fact that he mentions whenever I wear this suit, he says, "This is a really good suit." Or I can't remember what he says, but he says either that or this suit's very unlucky, hinting that every time he wears his tux, something goes horribly wrong.
Yeah, it's all those public events.
Yeah, one thing that really stood out to me, like straight away in this episode, is the production value. The attention to detail on these big episodes of Doctor Who is mind-blowing. Like, the interior of these ships and people's costumes and the props and the way it's all filmed was just amazing. And especially throughout Tennant's era, you can really see how, as the show's become more successful, they've really been able to push the boat with bigger budgets and things like that.
Yeah, I think it's a really clear, especially what I noticed was the kind of increase in production values on the CGI. I was there were a couple of bits where you saw the exterior shots of the Titanic ship, and also the bit where they were crossing that chasm, where I couldn't help but compare it to The End of the World from series 1.
Yeah.
And the quality jump is staggering.
Yeah.
Absolutely staggering.
To say it's only, 4 years, 3 or 4 years difference between those episodes. Yeah, I remember when we watched that first series, we were like, some of this CGI is a bit terrible, and even a little bit in series 2 with the werewolf. But that's amazing now, isn't it? Yeah, like I don't watch it and it doesn't stand out to me anymore, which is always obviously a good sign.
Yeah. Like, I remember the bit where they were having to cross that chasm and they were hanging on. There was a wee bit of vertigo, even though it was obvious. You can tell it's CGI. Like, I don't know if it's just the way it's shot or just the fact it was higher quality, but it's effective in the moment.
Yeah, 100%. Some more characters that we have in this episode that we're introduced to already by this point is Max Capricorn, who we'll get back to later. But I think we should talk about Kylie Minogue's Astrid Peth, formerly from Neighbours. Hooray. I think people forget that she was in Neighbours, wasn't she? It was Neighbours.
Yeah, she was. She was an actress before she was a pop star, yeah.
Yeah, I think people forget that. It's like she's the reverse Billie Piper. And she's fantastic in these 2 episodes. This episode, sorry. She's really great.
Yeah, she's really, really fun. Like, she just gets the role and is full of fun and life and enthusiasm. She's fantastic, yeah.
Yeah.
She's really, really great.
Yeah, her and David Tennant have a really good on-screen sort of chemistry. The way they bounce off each other is really well. And and there's that scene where she says, "Can I come on board? Can I travel with you?" And he says, "Yeah." And I think how cool it would have been to maybe have a series of that, those two just going on little adventures. Because I feel like if that had happened, then that would have strayed away from the Rose subplot of Ten trying to get over Rose. I feel like this could have been the point of going somewhere different. So that might have been interesting, and I feel like you could have really believed that those two were a couple, more than certain other companions or whatever.
Would have been damn expensive, mind. You know,
it would have been. Yeah. How would you have felt about that? About her joining the actual TARDIS?
It would have been fun. There would have been a potential danger of her just becoming a Rose replacement. If they had done a whole series with Kylie, they'd have had to find ways to make her character distinctly different.
Yeah.
From Rose, which I think they start to do here. Like, she's definitely not the same character as Rose by any means. But they'd have had to gone the extra mile if she were to have been around for a full series, so I feel.
I would have maybe liked them to fully embrace the relationship aspects of it. I know they tried to do it with, I know they couldn't really do it with Rose because of that whole I'll outlive you sort of thing. But maybe the Doctor just said, oh, well, I've already lost one person who I really like, so I'm just going to embrace this one. And maybe just like fully embraced it. Had a wedding. That would have been great.
Live for the moment.
Yeah.
Today.
Who else do we have appearing in this episode? What's his name? Rickson, the wealthy sort of business tycoon who's only really sort of looking after himself. And one thing that I noticed rewatching this is that how much of the themes of the actual Titanic and the movies of the Titanic play into this with different class issues. With is it Marvin and Foon played by I do not know the actors and actresses' names, but all I know is he's Duke from the story of Tracy Beaker, with them playing people who have won the competition to be in first class, and the people of first class are looking down on them. And I feel that's really sort of well done. That sort of like, I think we've spoken about in the past episode, Doctor Who was never political. It's only recently, ever since it's become so woke and all this, but it is. But it's so obvious, but you didn't notice it because you were a 7 or whatever.
Everything, every piece of art is political in some sense. You just need to be looking for it.
Who else do we have here? We have Clive Swift as Richard from Keeping Up Appearances, who plays, is it Mr. Copperfield? I want to say his character name is
something like that. The tour guide.
Yeah, he's really great in this. He's a really fun character, and his understanding of Earth is good fun, and the way I really like the speech he gives before they're transported down to Earth. And he says, no, the people of Great Britain go to war with the people of Turkey, and then they eat the people of Turkey. But we must all leave soon, because soon they're all going to come out fighting for Boxing Day. I mean, it's really good, and it sort of plays into that sort of, in 1,000 years, what will people think of like traditions we have now if these traditions still carry on?
I'd like to think that thanks to the internet, kind of our way of living today is going to be very effectively archived in a way that kind of no other period in history ever has been.
That's true. Balacafalata, played by the amazing Jimmy V, also the Moxa Balhoun in Series 1, a couple of Grasks in the Sarah Jane Adventures, and R2-D2 in the Star Wars sequels. A really good, fun character who I feel like probably just wrote in there, but his design really, a lot of his character designs actually, make him a very lasting print on Doctor Who. I think of the Moxa Balhoun, Series 1, Episode 2, and people still talk about it and still remember him now.
Yeah, the costume is a great costume, and he's really having fun in the role, and he's pushing it. Like, I mean, got to credit Russell to kind of having the alien creature not just be kind of an interesting looking alien creature, and also giving him a character to work with, and giving him that whole arc that then gets fulfilled within the story.
This episode is before we move on, there's a scene with Balacafalata that really stood out, and it's a scene where he's struggling, and Kylie Minogue goes over to help him out, and he reveals him to be a cyborg. And Kylie Minogue says, cyborgs, again, equal rights, they can even get married now, which is obviously at the time of when this episode went out is a reflection of an actual life of when gay rights were starting to become more accepted, and this sort of movement of gay people actually being allowed to get married. That sounds crazy saying that. now.
I mean, had gay marriage even been legalized when this episode came out? I'm not sure if it had.
I'm not sure if it had, but that's clearly what the point. That's the metaphor and the symbolism that Russell is trying to get with.
Yeah, very clearly.
I feel this episode is great for when people go, Doctor Who's always been political. That's why it doesn't get its viewing figures. So yeah, well, this is the most viewed episode of Doctor Who ever in New Who history, and just send them a list of how political this episode is. But that's not why it's great. It's not great because of its politicalness. That's not what makes Doctor Who great. What makes this episode great for me is there's really great characters, a great dynamic between the ensemble cast, something that I normally dislike. And I know in the past I spoke about how much I hate ensemble cast episodes and episodes where they're trapped on a spaceship, but that's what this episode is, and it's fantastic because it is just action from the very start with some really interesting plots, some really interesting characters. I think it's one of the best episodes that we've watched so far.
I think part of it is that this is the longest standalone episode we've had, isn't it?
Is it
1 hour,
like
10
an hour
minutes?
and 10 minutes.
Which is actually just 10 minutes short of 2 40-minute episodes. So in a way, it's kind of, maybe this is kind of the perfect balance for these larger scale, longer form episodes. I know with a story like Impossible Planet Satan Pit, you felt there were parts that really dragged. And maybe it's because 2 standalone episodes was maybe just a bit too much time.
Yeah.
Whereas here, just having it that bit shorter means that you have enough time to show all these characters, and yet you also need to keep up that pace and it doesn't slow down too much.
Yeah. That's probably true. That it's interesting to know that this Christmas special was longer than the actual 50th anniversary episode.
Wait, was the 50th not 70 minutes?
No, it wasn't even an hour, I don't think. I think it was just under, it was between 45 minutes and an hour. So let me have a quick look.
I'm sure the 50th is like feature length. Is it not?
No, it's not. I promise. Dave's Doctor running time is, maybe you are right. 77 minutes long. How long was that in an hour? It's not an hour and 20 minutes.
No.
I refuse to believe David the Doctor is an hour and 20 minutes.
Yeah. No, that sounds right. Yeah, it's just short of 90 minutes. Yeah.
I'm going to look it up on Netflix, see what their listing of it is. But whilst I'm doing that, what did you think to the line where the Doctor says he travels alone, or he tries to travel alone? Where ever since we've met this incarnation of Doctor, he's never done anything other than not travel alone. He's always with somebody else.
I guess there's a lot of ways you could look at that. You could view it from the standpoint that the Doctor, for most of his life, when we don't see him on screen, he is traveling alone. Maybe, there's a really long period between Runaway Bride and Smith and Jones where he's traveling alone. Maybe that can be said for every in-between companion season gap. Maybe the Doctor spends most of their time traveling alone. Or maybe you could just say that he says that because it just makes things easier as an introduction then. Oh yeah, I usually travel with people, but then they either die or get lost in an alternate dimension or get fed up of me and leave.
Yeah, that's true. There's one key point I want to save till last. But let me have a flick through my notes. An hour and 10 minutes. What do you think to the characters of the host? They're very Weeping Angel-esque with their sort of Halo statue, sort of angel-esque appearance. So I feel like maybe they were bouncing off that a little bit.
They reminded me more so of the Clockwork guys from Girl in the Fireplace.
Oh, that's very true. Yeah, I hadn't thought of that. Yeah. How come they reminded you of them?
Just because they had the whole robotic, very kind of refined, kind of almost formal robotic appearance, like a nicely designed robot person, and then they go about killing folks.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. One key moment from this episode as well is we get that famous 10th Doctor speech. That is like the key moment of the 10th Doctor's tenure. That speech where he says, "I'm the Doctor, I'm such and such, and I'm from the planet Gallifrey, constellation of whatever," and it goes on this big it goes on this big tirade about who he is and how he's going to save the day. That's really good fun, but then I feel that's also a frustration because somebody has just died, and then people are going to subsequently die, and he does his best. So that there's Marvin. I don't think it is Marvin, but I will say Marvin. Marvin and Fu when they're fixing that host, and it instantly comes alive and instantly tries and kills Marvin. It just sees him and goes kill, kill, kill. I think that was quite funny actually. And then obviously he trips and falls to his death. And then there's a really good bit where the Doctor's comforting Fu and saying, "I will come back for you. I will save you." But then she takes her own life to save the rest of them. And I think he like says no more or something like that. And
doesn't Karen Masalata also dies in that scene, doesn't he?
Barakafalata, yes, he does, yeah. Yeah, he does, doesn't he? Yeah, because he sacrifices his little pod thing, doesn't he, that Astrid uses later on in the episode.
Yeah, like 3 people die all in that one scene.
Yeah. I think we said this before, but we are getting more and more now with each episode darker 10th Doctor stuff that is leading up to his closing point of, with the end of time and all that. The end of time, is that what those 2 episodes are called? What's the last?
Yeah.
Yeah, the end of time, yeah.
Those are end of time, yeah.
I'm just skimming through my notes here. We've already spoken about Astrid possibly joining the TARDIS. Take me with you. Oh, there's that really good scene where he's standing off against different hosts, and he's stood there and he's asking all these different questions, and he's holding a frying pan. I think that's really well done, and he says that line, "Take me to your leader." I think it's a very funny 10th Doctor episode as well. How did you feel about that?
Yeah, that's a great scene. I think that was one thing that stood out to me when he was we had the 3 questions, and where he was just trying to. It was just kind of funny, like the rapid fireness, and also it was a great kind of showcase of kind of the Doctor's intelligence, but not in like a super indulgent way. It wasn't super indulgent of, oh, look how clever he is. Just kind of him on his feet, having to be quick-witted to figure out his way out of the situation.
Yeah. No, I think there's a lot of that this episode, isn't there? Where I feel like this is one of the only episodes or one of the first anyway, where the Doctor, you can see he doesn't really have a plan, but everybody's relying on him, and very quickly, even like Richmond and people like that, they turn to the Doctor, even if they don't particularly like him, to sort of get them out of this issue that they found themselves in.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about Max Capricorn, the actual villain of the episode. An amazing prop, an amazing prosthetic all around, really. A really good voice as well, I felt as well. He's got a very menacing persona. What did you think towards him? A great name as well.
Very cool. He's got very cool, like borderline cartoony villain, but kind of it's pulled off in a way that kind of is just very entertaining and works within the context of the episode.
Yeah.
And also, what's that? Kind of continuing what you were saying about Doctor Who being political, his motivations are corporate greed.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I hadn't caught that one. I really like the line where the 10th Doctor says, "You can't even sink the Titanic." Like he's like, you're the worst. He's like really patronizing towards him. It's like you're trying to be this big evil guy, but you can't even sink the Titanic. That's what it's famous for. And I think he says that at the start of the episode, doesn't he, when he's talking to a host. And he said, "Oh, why did you pick? Why is it called the Titanic?" And they say, "Oh, it's a very famous ship." And he's like, "Well, did they tell you why it's famous?"
That's a very funny interaction.
Almost as soon as we are introduced to Max Capricorn, he dies. When Kylie Minogue drives him off the end of, like, into the heart of the ship, really, into the fire that keeps the ship going. That is a really sort of surprisingly moving scene, I felt, because the 10th Doctor lost Rose and he had Martha, who wanted to be more than just friends, but he didn't. So he not only has he lost his girlfriend, he then lost a friend, and now he's got a friend, and now she's going to die. It was when I'm watching it, I'm going, "Oh, this guy's really unlucky with the people he picks." But the way that sort of played out, we've only known Astrid for a short period of time, but like it all slows down. There's some great music, and you can see David Tennant does some fantastic acting as always. And the way she sort of sacrifices herself, and there's nothing he can do but watch. It's held back, and the brake lines are cut, so it's almost like even if he could get over there, something's going over the edge.
Yeah, absolutely.
What did you think to the death sequence?
I feel bad about that scene because when I watch it, I can only think of two things. Because she comes at him with is it a forklift?
Yeah.
The only thing I could think of, and this is just a purely hindsight thing, this is obviously something they couldn't anticipate, but I can only think of the finale to A Matter of Life and Death.
Well, that's that episode ruined for everybody who's listened to this. Everybody watch this every time they now watch that episode of Doctor Who. We'll just be able to see poor old Paella flying through the sky.
I'm sorry, that was the only thing I could come to mind. And it's a purely hindsight thing. They didn't know that the next year Nick Parker was going to come out with a really funny Wallace and Gromit short.
That's true. That's very true. That's a turning point for Tennant as well. I feel is that thing where he's taken by the hosts and crashes through the ceiling. That sort of. Go on.
That's an interesting point you just brought up because I've heard lots of people kind of say that Russell at various points with the 10th Doctor does kind of do this thing where he portrays him as an almost Christ-like figure, and they use kind of that scene where his two angels are lifting him up as almost kind of a prime example of that. Do you think the 10th Doctor is a Christ figure?
No, quite he's a god. I think he's seeing himself as the god of Time Lords now. He's the only one, and he's gone through so much. And I personally think that scene works well because it is followed later in the episode by Mr. Copperfield telling the Doctor that he almost has the power to determine who lives and who dies, and that would make somebody a monster, which is what, spoilers, later becomes in Waters of Mars. So I feel that maybe people aren't really catching the importance of this episode almost, and the importance of this final, where it is that changing point of he is no longer just the Doctor, he almost a controller of time, and that obeys to me thing that we get in the Waters of Mars that I'm very much looking forward to getting to. And this is really the starting point of that.
Okay, so you view that whole thing as less of the Doctor being some kind of Christ-like savior and more like the Doctor viewing himself as a godlike figure who has the power to do these things. That's interesting.
Yeah, it's more ego. I think it's more ego on the Doctor's part rather than Russell writing it because he absolutely loves the Doctor or whatever. I think it's a character development rather than Russell's going. I would be inclined to say it would be similar to when Matt Smith. When Stephen Moffat goes, but he's the Doctor. He can do anything. It's almost saying it's almost like that sort of thing. But this plays into the development of 10.
That's interesting. I've never heard that perspective before. I like that.
What did you think?
No, I love that, and I love, like you said, one of the things that really stuck out to me was at the very end, that kind of allusion to the Time Lord Victorious stuff about how, well, if you had the power to decide who lives and who dies and what happens to people, that makes you some kind of monster.
Yeah.
And yeah.
It's very similar as well when when he realizes he can't bring back Astrid, and he just is so determined to bring her back, and there's that frustration where he kicks the podium, and it's almost like he just wanted a friend so bad. And it's like, even though he can control time to an element, it just seems like everybody he wants to survive or everybody he wants to spend time with, he can't, but he can save everybody else. He can save Richmond, but he can save Richmond, this horrible business tycoon, and luckily save Mr. Copperfield. But, Marvin and Fu, they go, Balacafalata goes, Astrid goes, all the good people you really want to save, meet their ends.
Yeah, it's interesting kind of that desperate. You see it in quite a few 10th Doctor episodes, actually. Kind of at the end of the whole story, there's this one last minute rush to try and at least save one person. Like at the end of Evolution of the Daleks, there was that last rush to save Laszlo.
Yeah.
And then there's a similar thing here. And then you get it again. Laszlo. can't do it as well as she can. And then you see it later in like Science in the Library, again, that kind of last minute mad dash to at least save this one guy.
Yeah.
And it kind of feeds into that whole thing that you're saying about kind of
I Love and Monsters, where he tells Elton to fetch a spade.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah. I didn't realize how much of a recurring motif that was for the 10th Doctor until just now.
I really like it when everybody's thanking him, when everyone's thanking him, and he's just so pissed. You can see in his eyes how annoyed he is that everybody's so thankful that they lived, but they're not able to sort of see that people died so they could live almost, and that he wasn't able to save everybody. I think that's really great. But then he sort of redeems himself within himself by taking Mr. Copperfield, I hope it is Copperfield, back to Earth, and that really lovely sequence at the end where he realizes he's actually a millionaire is great. And Clive Swift, unfortunately, no longer with us, obviously keeping up appearances, and there's such an amazing British actor. He gets that fantastic bit at the end where he just screams with joy, and it's just a fantastic comedic performance. And yeah, I think that's great. And the way David Tennant's Doctor is very sort of, he almost looks at it as like, what a sweet man. He really deserved that sort of thing.
Yeah, I'm glad they kind of ended it on that very uplifting, Christmassy note.
Exactly. I'm all through with my notes apart from one thing that I think you've worked out I've deliberately left till last. Before we get to that, anything else that I haven't touched on that you would like to touch upon?
I mean, I feel like this is what you're going to mention, generally just talking about the stuff. We've been talking about all the stuff that happens on the Titanic, but we haven't talked about much about the stuff that's happening on Earth during this episode.
Well, let's talk about... I was so excited when he appeared on the screen. Genuinely, one of my favourite characters in Doctor Who. And I'd forgotten when I started watching it that he appeared until they landed on Earth. I suddenly got very excited. But Bernard Cribbins as Wilf is my all-time favourite Doctor Who character. I love that character so much. I love Bernard Cribbins. I think Wilf is such a fantastic character, and I can't wait for when he meets the Doctor again in the Sontaran episode. That's going to be so much fun. But he's great. He's so good in this episode, isn't he?
Yeah, he's so, instantly kind of endearing. The fact that kind of like what's going on in London, that because of the previous Christmas specials, everyone is too scared to be in London on Christmas.
Yeah.
He's sticking there because he believes in the Queen and that she's sticking, and that very endearing sort of patriotism.
Yeah.
And then like his reaction to like when they get beamed back up and just like, oh shit.
Yeah. I really like the bit at the end as well where he sees on the telly that the Titanic is heading straight for Buckingham Palace. And he jumps out his little booth and he's waving his fist in the air saying, "Don't you dare, you aliens, don't you dare." And I also love the fact that this was only meant to be a one-time appearance from Bernard Cribbins. We'll speak about that more when we get into Series 4. But yeah, I mean, it's fantastic. He's such a great character, and I'm so excited that we're now in a series where I know that I'm really going to enjoy a lot of the character performances. There's some big names coming up. Tim McInnerny, the guy from Merlin. Some really good names.
Morgan?
That's him. Some good names coming up in this series. But let me read a couple of Instagram things I put out. If you go to our Instagram, @BiggerOnThePod, I often ask for your guys' thoughts on the episode. I always read a couple. I'll just read the one out today because I know the episode's running a bit long. But Samuel Norris says, brilliant episode, very underrated. And I do agree because I was not expecting much from watching this, but very much enjoyed it. Would you agree with him there, Harry?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a very fun episode. Yeah. And honestly, it's one of the Christmas ones that I probably forget about. And I'm not sure why, because it does stand up.
Yeah. It's a nice break as well from the two previous ones, which are very similar, to then have something very different.
Yeah, that's very true.
But instead of doing something completely different, let's do something that we do every week, and it's time for the quiz.
patient. Patience is for wimps.
Oh boy, oh yikes, here we go.
As you mentioned, Harry, this is an extra long episode of Doctor Who. So I have an extra quiz question. You have 4 questions this week instead of your standard 3. Question number 1. What is Earth known as? They give it a name and a number. Can you remember what it's referred to as?
No, I cannot. I'm gonna say...
The answer is Sol 3. When
no,
one of the
get that.
hosts goes a bit strange, it goes on the blink, and it's taken into the back room, and the guy says, if you can't fix them, throw them overboard. How many does he say have already gone on the blink that week? Gives a number.
Is it 8?
It is 8. Well done.
Yes.
That's 1 so far. How old does the Doctor say he is in his famous speech?
900 years old?
903 years old.
Ah.
No point there, I'm afraid. How many times does Fu say that she entered the competition to win tickets to go on board the Titanic in first class?
Was it 1,000 times?
It was what, sorry?
1,000 times.
5,000 times, I'm afraid, Harry. 1 out of 4. So somehow you've actually done worse than normal.
Oh.
You've scored more points, but actually done worse.
I'm not good at these, Tim.
Deary me. Recommendations, Harry. It's that time in the show where we like to recommend things to our listeners outside of Doctor Who, because believe it or not, we do like other things.
Before I go, I just want to tell you you were fantastic.
Would you care for me to go first, or would you like to go first yourself?
You go first, by all means, Tim.
Well, lucky for me, this week, last week actually, I finished my second semester at university. My second year at university. So I've just kind of been living on campus, chilling out, doing some podcast stuff. But the university kindly threw a fun event with a limited capacity. It was mainly an online event, but if you were lucky enough, you could turn up in person. And I was one of the lucky ones to sit in a giant hall and watch a live demonstration of the internet marionette series Nebula 75, which is very much in the same vein as Thunderbirds, Joe 90, Stingray, Captain Scarlet by Jerry Anderson. And these guys sort of came on, they brought all their puppets with them and did live sort of set building and sort of told you how they produced these amazing basically TV episodes during lockdown. You might be able to catch them on YouTube. I know they are definitely on Amazon Prime. You might have to pay for them, unfortunately, but there's lots of clips on YouTube you can watch as well. But what I found also very exciting is that during the 1960s, the full cast of Thunderbirds recorded audio plays in the same vein of Doctor Who, but for Thunderbirds. And they managed to salvage these and actually turn them into 3 brand new Thunderbirds episodes. And they brought along actual puppets used in in these new episodes. So I got to have my photo taken with Parker Brains and the Thunderbird one, which was all very exciting. But what I'd like to recommend is if you get a chance to go and see these guys, I don't know if they're doing a tour of universities or whatever in the new year, the new academic year, but if you do go and get a chance to go and see them, do go and see them. They're really great guys and doing a really good, interesting show with a Q&A as well. But also to check out the series Nebula 75. Really good fun, homemade, lovely, very just entertaining to watch for a lot of people. So that's what I'd like to recommend. And how about you, Harry?
I would like to recommend something which I think is it's not like a piece of media. It's just something that I think people should keep doing and that I've been doing for a while. Which is I'm sorry to take it to the real world, but Doctor Who's political. Why can't I be? I mean, this isn't a political thing. This is a health thing. But I want to recommend people
push old men in ponds when they eat your Pringles.
No, I was going to recommend people getting COVID tests, Tim.
Yeah, I suppose.
Yeah, like obviously, this is a thing because seriously, like the world is like opening up again. Things are opening up again, and vaccines are becoming available, and it's all great and it's all really great. But despite that, I feel like we can't start to feel too safe. I feel like it's still important that we regularly test, and just to make sure that we are, still safe, that we're still healthy. Like I 100%. Get a test on my uni campus. I am lucky enough to be able to test twice a week, which I am doing. I recommend everyone does the same. Even when you have the vaccine, it doesn't mean you're 100% immune. So it's still good to keep that testing up for the safety of yourself and the safety of everyone else. Just a small thing to do twice a day, well, twice a week.
Twice a week, yeah.
Like takes up, yeah. It's a small thing, but it's also a big thing.
Yeah, definitely.
I just, and I know that kind of, I've heard things that kind of like on my campus currently, I know there's been a drop since the vaccine rollout has started going to younger ages of people getting tested. And so it's just something I've kind of felt compelled to promote.
Yeah, definitely. If you're in a position to get the free test, do it. People like myself who are at uni and also work in not the hospital, the sort of entertainment, I don't want to say entertainment industry. I work in nightclubs. I'm a freelance photographer, everybody. Hello. Work in nightclubs and pubs and stuff like that. So when they're open, that's great for them because it means I can go to work. So obviously the 2 COVID tests here at the University of Hull, where I am, a great help. So yeah, especially if you can get it through work or wherever you work or through university, school, preschool. If you listen to this and you're at preschool, terrible parents. But yeah, take care. Look after yourself, man. Anything else, Harry? Anything else you need to say? Any more political agendas you want to slam down people's throats?
No, I'm not a very political person.
Well, thank you all very much for listening. We will be back in the near future with the actual start of Doctor Who Series 4, Partners in Crime, which I'm very excited to get through this series. We do have some fun sort of different distributional things and how the series is going to be laid out and how you guys will be able to listen to it as well coming up with some extra content as well. So do stay tuned for that. We'll mention that at some point during the first half of Series 4. So I will say goodbye, everybody. Do like, comment, subscribe, 5-star review and all that. And Harry, do you want to say anything at all?
Bye-bye.
Woo, he did his catchphrase.
Make sure you subscribe to the official Bigger on the Inside podcast.